Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in to Mesilla Valley Better Together. My name is Joey Hernandez. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm very excited to welcome our guests today. Now, the election is just a few days away, and we thought this was the perfect opportunity to be able to get you informed as we get ready for the election happening on November 5th. We thought bring in the experts to help us get us prepared for that very special day. And someone that you've heard on the airwaves, whether it's on KGRT 103.9, Classic Rock 98.7, today's hottest music hot 103, or our newest station, Cool 104.5. We are excited to welcome Chief Deputy Clerk Caroline Zamora is joining us today on the show. Good morning. Welcome.
Hey,
Thank you so much for
Joey.
joining us.
Thank you for having me. That was like the nicest introduction I've ever gotten. That was so nice.
I needed to make sure that I was extra professional today. I even wore a collared shirt
You
just to
did.
make
You
sure.
you know you did. Usually you are in a t-shirt.
I know.
Thank you, Joey.
Honestly, it was laundry day, and I didn't realize it. But no, this is exciting because you have joined us on the show a couple of times.
Mhm.
But I thought this was the perfect opportunity for us to have a conversation as the election is coming up, and some things that people need to know as they get ready for the election. Before how many days? We're
Oh gosh,
12, 13
13
days?
days out.
13 days. I saw the website. As a
Yep.
matter of fact, you guys have
We
a
have a
countdown.
countdown, yeah.
Yes, I was like, okay, did I see that yesterday or today? But no, of course, we're 13 days away from the election, and I thought, what perfect time to have you guys come and talk with us, and especially just to inform our voters throughout Dona County and those that may be watching, and kind of get them ready for election day. And even if they're doing early voting, we can
Yeah,
get them
absolutely. Thank
informed.
you for having me. I really do appreciate it.
So before we get started, of course, go ahead and introduce yourself. Let
Yeah.
people know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so like you said, I am the chief deputy county clerk. I was born and raised here in Las Cruces. I graduated from Mayfield High School. I am also a two-time Aggie. I have 2 degrees from New Mexico State
Nice.
University.
Go Aggies.
Go Aggies. Um, for about 10 years, I was in marketing and PR for an early intervention and healthcare company here in town. And then a really great opportunity came up that I was able to be appointed by our clerk, Dr. Amanda Lopez Askin. And so I've been serving as your chief deputy clerk for 2 years.
Wow.
And I have loved every moment of it.
And of course, there's a lot that goes on. And I know people think, oh, it's just every election. But no, there's quite a bit that
There's a
happens.
lot. People don't realize how much goes into an election. I mean, months of preparation for one election. And then there's also the other side of the house, which is our recording and filing department.
Yes.
And we're recording hundreds of documents every day, a minimum of 100 documents a day. Yeah.
So, of course, there's no rest for you and your team. And of course, a great team that you have at the county,
Yes.
a lot of work behind the scenes.
Mhm.
Oftentimes we see, the interviews, but a lot of work goes into getting prepared for the election,
Yeah.
not just from yourself, but from the team that you have down at the county.
Yeah, absolutely. We have the best team in the state of New Mexico. Dona County runs, in my opinion, the best elections in our state. Um, our Bureau of Elections team is absolutely fantastic. Janice Hiron is our supervisor. Roman Pacheco is our warehouse supervisor, and they run a tight ship when it comes to knowing election code and law. Um, I call them my experts. Also, our other leads, Doreen and Jackie, Karen, who does an amazing job. She coordinates 300 to 400 people every election.
Wow.
She coordinates all of our election officials, and she does a fantastic job. I think a lot of people don't know that New Mexico election code is really, really, really fantastic, in my opinion. That's where we're ranked number one. But election code says that each site has to have a mix of certain parties. So if the presiding judge at a site is, let's say, a Republican, the machine judge has to be Republicans, Democrats, Independents, an equal mix of them.
So there's that balance
Absolutely,
between
yes.
all parties,
Yes.
when it comes to preparing for each station.
Mhm.
So, and that's, I think, it's one of those things that people may not know. I mean, oftentimes, we hear a lot of what's going on, and I think oftentimes when you take a step back and you're actually hearing from those officials that are putting everything together, it's in a sense comforting to know that, okay, this is what's being represented, so that way people know that when they go to the polls to vote, no matter in this election or any election, that they know this is what's happening at the polling station.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, so much work goes into preparing for an election, whether it's proofing ballots, which takes a long time, certifying all the machines. Um, of course, putting together all the public information that we put out, we have to all the locations have to get be approved by the county commission. Working with all the sites like schools, our other government buildings, um, and so working through all of those details, like I said, it takes months preparing for an election, and we have an amazing team. I can't say enough good things about them.
I mean, just a great thing, and then just with the information that you guys have, presented to everybody as we get closer and closer to the election, and the work that you guys do in the community from being involved and being out in the community, I've noticed farmers markets, whether you're
Mhm.
at farmers markets or any other events, you're out there, informing people and letting people know as we get prepared for the
Yeah.
election.
Yeah, absolutely. Our clerk, Amanda and I, we are very passionate about making sure that our voters and constituents are informed. And so also our team, can I tell you how much our team like loves getting out and talking to people? And so we get out to the farmers market. We were at the fair. We did the National Voter Registration Day. We went to NMSU. So we love being out in the community and talking to people and being able to answer questions. And also, I think people really appreciate like we get people coming up to us and asking us questions all the time. And so I love being out there and being able to talk to everyone.
And that's great, and you mentioned NMSU, and I think that's another thing to remember is that, with the, students at New Mexico State University, some of them, this may be their first election that they're voting in,
Yeah.
and so knowing that, maybe they may be away from home and, they're also getting ready to vote for the very first
Mhm.
time, knowing the presence that you guys put on campus as well as just the surrounding area, how much of a good job you guys do to get that information to people.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. We also, we make it a point to have one of our early voting sites and one of our election day sites is on campus at Corbett Center.
Very nice.
Because I mean, it is a hub for the students on campus, but it's also a hub for the community also.
Perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. And, guys, for those that are watching us today, and, don't be afraid to drop your comments in if you have any questions.
Mhm.
Of course, we'll make sure to, get those questions. Also wanna thank, we actually did, earlier, in the week, we did open up for people to drop us some questions, and knowing that you were gonna be here, and, take some calls and be able to have some questions, and I thought we'd go ahead and start off, talking about campus. Thought we'd go ahead and start with, Sarah, who actually, left us a message talking about NMSU. So we'll go ahead and get to our first voting question, which comes from Sarah.
Hello, my name is Sarah, and I'm currently a freshman at New Mexico State University. Will there be a voting site on campus or near campus on Election Day?
And that's perfect because we just
Yes.
talked
Thank
about
you for
that.
teeing me up, Sarah. Thank you. Yes, like we just said, that there is an early voting location at Corbett Center, and it will also be an election day location. That is one of our most used sites. It's one of our high traffic sites.
Okay.
So a lot of folks will be using it. If I'm thinking about the early voting sites, the nearest one to Corbett Center is going to be Dona County, East Mesa.
Okay.
If you're on that side of town, the east side of town, City Hall is also pretty close, or Mesilla Town Hall,
Okay.
and those are for the early voting sites. Election day sites, we have 42
Yeah.
election day sites. There's a lot going on election day sites.
And one of the
So
things that you mentioned with election sites is, and from our previous conversations is on election day, you can go to any one of the election
mhm.
sites, correct? You don't have to go to this one particular location. If you work, in East Mesa, or maybe you work on campus, you're able to vote at your nearest voting location.
Yeah, that's what's wonderful about, New Mexico, is we do not have assigned voting locations. You're able to vote at any location in your county, um, and that's because we use a BOD, which is ballot on demand system, which means we do not print ballots beforehand. We do not print a ballot until you are requesting a ballot through an application for an absentee mail ballot, or you are standing in front of us requesting your ballot. Then we print your ballot, which makes it so you can go to any site and walk up and ask for your ballot.
Yeah, I think
Mhm.
about even in from my personal experience, especially when, my wife and I, we like to, go together when we go voting. And so knowing that if it's like, hey, we can meet halfway at a voting
Mhm.
location, it's like, okay, we can meet there. And then that way we can go and go vote together.
Yeah, and you know what I also love about the system, like thinking about to when I've voted in the past, um, if there's a long line at, let's say, the government center, and I mean that line, it's snakes through the commission chamber, it goes all the way down the hall. Usually, like that is a heavy traffic site. If there's a long line at that site, You know what? Fair Acres, 2 miles away, usually never has a line. So you can go jump to Fair Acres real quick, go down to Mesilla.
Yeah, and I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think sometimes people go to the government center. It can be one or 2 things, and I've even seen in talking to friends. For one, it's that feeling like, there's like, "Hey, I wanna go to that building for that reason. I probably never have to go to the government center, but now this gives me a reason to go to the government center to go vote." But I think oftentimes people don't realize that there are other voting locations that they can go to, so letting people know that, like you said, Bear Acres is just not
Right
that
down the
far away.
road. Yep.
You can go and vote there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Fair Acres is really close. Valley Drive, the little elementary on Valley Drive. I used to work there. I know I'm thinking about it. East Picacho
Yes.
Elementary is a site. But you can go ahead and check out. We have such a great website, and we have an interactive map on our website. So you're able to see all the locations. And that is dacelections.com/locations.
Okay.
But you can go ahead when you get to our site, you just look at voting locations, and it has um, all the early voting sites plus all the election day sites.
Excellent, excellent. If you're just joining us today, we are joined by Chief Deputy Clerk Caroline Zamora as we are getting you prepared for the 2024 general election and all the things that are coming with election day and preparing you, and especially with early voting, as which is taking place right
Mhm.
now. And when we spoke to you last, Saturdays have now become a day that people
Yep.
can go vote at select locations
Mm.
that they can go and vote. Correct?
Yeah, and our office has really made we try to make voting as accessible as possible. And so we try to have non-traditional hours. And so early voting takes place between October 19th and November 2nd, Tuesdays through Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. So we try to help out folks who maybe work till 5. So we try to stay open a little later, things like that. And so, yeah, and again, try to stay open on Saturdays so that folks who are maybe working Monday through Friday and can't get there have the opportunity to get out and vote.
And when would the last I mean, obviously, as we're getting closer to the election day, when would be the last day for early voting?
Yeah, last day of early voting is November 2nd, which is the Saturday before the election.
Okay,
So not this Saturday, next Saturday.
okay.
And so that's the last day of early voting. And then our office basically has 3 days to set up, make sure everything is good at those 42 sites for election day.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, a lot of work is getting done and getting taken care of as we get ready for the election, and, we think about those that for us, it takes those couple of minutes to go vote,
Mhm.
but for you guys, what is the preparation? Because this isn't something that you just started last week or, "Hey, this summer, let's start getting ready for the election." There's a lot of preparation that goes into getting ready for an election, whether it's the general election or any election
Yeah.
that is taking place.
There's a lot that happens. If you think of a site when you go to vote, when you check in, there are laptops and printers that are all set up when you get there. There's also the booths that have the cardboard, like the privacy cardboards.
Yes.
Those tables and the cardboards have to be set up. The tabulators alone have already gone through several processes of being certified, plus actually being delivered and set up. And so just thinking about like when you walk into the site, what's already set up and ready for you
Yeah.
to vote. Um, Other preparation that we do is, of course, working with all the sites to make sure the room has adequate electrical power
Okay.
because there's a lot, we bring in printers and laptops and the tabulators and all of a sudden, like, the electric grid is like, "Whoa, what's happening?" So we make sure that all of, the electricity in that room is working. Also, we do accessibility checks to make sure that people who, need accessibility needs, are able to get in and out of the room, things like that.
That's right. Of course, there's a lot that goes into you going to make sure you get your vote in. And let's talk a little bit about becoming an election official.
Mhm.
And we've mentioned this in previous conversations. For those that want to be a part of the election and do their part to be a part of this process, what if somebody that's watching us or listening to us wants to be a part of the process? How can they get involved?
Yeah, so I always love talking about our election officials. Right now, I did talk to Karen. She is fully staffed and she's overstaffed right now. We have
Okay.
standbys ready to go for early voting or for election day, so we're good on election officials at the moment. But if you ever want to work an upcoming election, go to our website, fill out the application. Um, like I said, we you do have to be registered.
Okay.
but you can also be under the age of 18.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you're 16 or 17, you can work with mom or dad's permission, and also you can register before the age of 18, which I know we're gonna talk about in a little bit,
Yeah.
and it's kinda in our system. They're inactive until they turn 18 and then they become active. But so you have to be registered to vote, and you can be 16, 17, and of course, over the age of 18. And I love working elections. So it's a fun day
Yeah.
because you're all of a sudden all these people that you didn't know were going to be like you're going to see them that day, like your neighbors or your aunts and your uncles are showing up, and you're getting to talk to community, and you're getting to everyone's kind of excited. I love election day. It's a long day, I won't lie to you.
Yeah.
Election officials have to be there at 6 in the morning. They don't leave till polls close at 7, and
Yeah.
so until you're done cleaning up the site, and depending on if there's still a line,
You could
you
be
might be
there
there a while, yeah.
might be for a long evening, seeing the process firsthand. I've
Mhm,
gotten a chance to witness the process
mhm,
firsthand, the behind the scenes, and knowing the obviously, once the polls close at 7, the steps that is taken
mhm,
then to then make sure that the results are in, making
mhm,
sure everything is then in a sense that everything is moving in the direction that it needs to, for
mhm,
one, for us to be able to tally the votes, to be able
mhm.
to get the results. There's a lot that goes into it. So, and I know quite often that we stay glued to the headlines that is like, okay, it's 7 o'clock. Why don't we have a winner? It's like, well, I wish it worked that easy. I really do wish it would work that easy, but there are a lot of steps that you and the staff take to make sure that that's taken care of. Talk a little bit
Yes.
about that. I know we can't do too much, but they're definitely that almost is crunch time for you and your staff once
Yeah.
7 o'clock hits.
Around 6 o'clock is when I head over to the warehouse. So
Yeah.
most of my day I spend at the government center. Around 6 o'clock, I head to the warehouse because at 7 o'clock, that's when that building really starts buzzing. But what's going to happen at an election site is at 7 o'clock, once all the voters who were in line by 7 have voted, um, all the ballots, plus all the cards that are in the tabulators have to make their way to the warehouse. The election officials have to get all of that. They have to basically reconcile and get their site closed down and get everything back to the warehouse. At that point, our warehouse will begin tallying. We cannot officially start tallying anything until 7 p.m. on election night. And so we will start running the cards. And then what's great about New Mexico is all the machines, all the tabulators are all air gapped. So they never touch the internet.
Okay.
And so the cards go onto one laptop where they're read, and then they go onto a second laptop that only transmits to the Secretary of State's office. And that's when you start seeing the results on the Secretary of State's website.
Okay.
I'm looking at the exact same page as the public is looking at. So sometimes people think that they can call me and ask and act like I know what's going on. I don't. I'm
Yeah.
literally looking at the same page everyone else is
We are
looking at.
all looking at the same page, and
Yes.
that's great for people to know
Mhm.
because, this is also not just happening here in Dona County, but
It's
this
across the
is
state.
across the state.
Mhm.
So for what we're doing, and we're a big county.
Mhm.
So if you think about all the especially with you said over 40 voting sites
Mhm.
that we have within our county, then on top of that, and then just tallying all of New Mexico, there definitely is a lot to make sure that we get the results so that way we know what happens after the end of the
Yeah,
election.
absolutely. There's a lot that goes into it. Like you said, there are 33 counties throughout the state that are going through the same process. We are the second largest county in the state, second to Bernalillo County, which is the Albuquerque area. And there is a lot that goes in that night. Um, where was I going with that?
Basically, you're drinking a lot of coffee around is what you're
Yes,
telling me.
yes. I do want to also talk about that night, what's going to happen. We have the absentee board. The absentee board counts all the absentee ballots, which are the mail ballots. Mail ballots have they come in our envelopes and actually have two envelopes. So there's the process of opening envelopes and then laying the ballots flat and then running the ballots. And that process can't start until we can't start tallying anything until 7 o'clock that night. By that point, but there's things that the absentee board can start doing. They can start opening
They
and
can start
planning.
preparing.
Yes, preparing to start the tallying and things like that, and running them through the tabulators. So by that night, we send them home at 11, and that is state law.
Yeah.
That is the law. So at 11 o'clock, the absentee board is going to be sent home because at that point they've already been working since 6
Since
o'clock that
6 o'clock.
morning.
Yes, because
Yeah.
I mean, even though
Mhm.
it starts at 7, there is preparation,
They get there
obviously, to get
early.
ready. Yes,
Mhm.
6 o'clock, they're already there, and then you think by 11, I mean, you're probably
That is a long
exhausted by then.
day,
Yeah.
yes, and so by law, we're gonna send them home at 11, and quite frankly, we want them to go home and get some rest because we want them to be as accurate as possible. The public wants them to be as accurate as possible, and when you're just that tired, we don't want them making mistakes. So at 11 o'clock at night, they're going to be sent home. I'm going to guess that we will not be done counting absentee on election night. So I want to tell the public that it is very likely we will not have any unofficial results on election night. They will come back the next morning and they will start counting again at 9:30 after they've rested, and they'll start again at 9:30. So I'm going to guess that we won't have those unofficial results until the next day.
And I think this is the perfect opportunity to promote the Facebook page as well,
Mhm.
because what I've noticed in previous elections is you're letting the public know what is going on. It almost seems like that's that behind the scenes that we see on social media. So if it is a situation where we've reached 11 o'clock or there is, unofficial results, whatever the case may be, you guys are posting in real
Mhm.
time. Your team is making sure that they're keeping the public updated with everything that is happening. So there's no big mystery, and obviously with us having this conversation, but you're informing the community as this process is going.
Yeah, absolutely. We make it a point to inform the public as much as possible. So please follow our Facebook and our Instagram and our Twitter accounts because we post as we're reading those cards and getting those results and transmitting the information to the Secretary of State's website. We're telling the public, hey, Sonoma Ranch is in, DACC East Mesa is in, Chaparral is in, and so we keep that list going and posting as we're getting those in, so that folks know which sites are in. And we will let them know, hey, it's 11 o'clock. We're sending them home. They're not done counting.
Yeah.
And we also do a lot of live videos. We'll do videos throughout the night. Again, we want to inform the public and let them know what's going on.
And I think we're very lucky and very fortunate to be able to have that transparency that we're knowing what's taking place, especially when it comes to an election to this magnitude that we know what's going on. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking a presidential election as well as other items that will be on the ballot as well. So that way, and this is just with any vote, that way we're staying informed and you're keeping the
Yeah,
community
and
up to date.
just as a comparison, during the primary, we had about 2,000 absentee ballots that had to be tallied. Only 2,000. Now we've already received yesterday was the last day to apply. For applications, we've received over 1,200.
Wow.
12 sorry, 12,000.
I was gonna say, wait, I
12,000.
think I know where we were going with that.
Yeah,
12,000.
12,000. We've received over 12,000. So just a comparison, we're I don't think we will be done. It is unlikely we will be done with those election night. It will probably be the next day.
We're gonna go ahead and go to another voter's question, and this one is coming from Amanda, who actually will be voting in her. Seems like she'll be voting in her very first election. So
Yay,
uh,
first time
we'll go
voter.
ahead and we'll see the question from Amanda.
My name is Amanda. I'm not 18, but will be by election day. Can I register to vote?
So her birthday, obviously, she will be turning 18 before the election. Will she still be able to register to vote? Or I know in some states there is certain months that they have to be 18 before they can register. How does that apply here in New Mexico?
So it's so there's a few responses to this question. Yes, you can register to vote before the age of 18.
Mhm.
In our system, you just stay inactive, and the day you turn 18, you become active.
Okay.
Also in the state of New Mexico, Amanda, I'm sorry if you did not know this, but also in the state of New Mexico, Amanda could have voted in the primary, even though she's 17.
Okay.
If you're going to be 18 on or before election day, you can vote in the primary for a
Okay.
general. Yeah. So Amanda, depending on if she was a member of the major parties, could have voted in the primary as a 17-year-old because she's going to be 18 on or before the election. Another answer for this question is the voter rolls have already closed, which means you can't, go on to, do a traditional registration. However, New Mexico also has same day registration, which
Okay.
you can do at any of the voting sites. So you can go ahead and get registered there.
So it sounds like Amanda will be turning 18 before the election, and I'm wondering if she wasn't thinking, can I register the day, like you mentioned, the
Mhm.
day of the election to be able to cast her vote?
Yeah, absolutely. She can utilize same day registration. She'd have to bring in a government ID
Okay.
and a proof of residence. So something like a utility bill, a rental agreement, something that proves that she lives where she lives, a proof of residence, and it has to be a piece of mail. It could be like also a bank statement. So a government ID and a proof of residence. Or she can bring in if she has her real New Mexico ID
Okay.
that has her address on it, that she can go ahead and bring that.
Perfect. So one of those things to make sure to keep in mind, especially for our new voters. And this, of course, leads me to our next set of questions is, we have voters that are going to be voting for the very first time in New Mexico. You have those that are just turned 18. Um, Walk us through that process, of course, because it's been a minute since I mean, I remember the first time voting, but obviously, I think there's a lot of questions that I think when it comes to those that are turning 18, like I didn't realize that they were able to vote in the primary
Mhm.
if they were 17, getting ready to be 18. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of things. What are some questions that you often hear from those new voters?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love going to actually talk to our high schools. We do a lot of high school presentations at our local high schools. In fact, on Monday, no, yeah, Monday, I was talking to a homeschooling program, a co-op, and talking to them. And so I love getting to talk to young people. Some of the questions we get are, when can I vote? Who's eligible to vote? Um, what's it like voting? I take for granted that my parents always took me to vote with them. And so I kind of always saw that, but not all parents have that opportunity. Not all kids have that opportunity to go vote with their parents. And so I also walk them through what it's gonna be like when they show up. And so when you get there to a voting location, you might have to stand in line. That's okay. Get in line, say hi to people, talk to them. Everyone's super friendly. And so when you get up to the check-in station, at this point, you've already registered, right? You're registered. This is your first time voting. You're getting up to the check-in station. They're going to ask you to identify yourself by either giving them your first and last name, your address, or the year of birth.
Okay.
And then they're going to look you up in the system. A lot of times people just hand them their ID because that's easier.
Yeah.
Here's my driver's license.
Yeah.
It's easy for them. So they can do that also. Um, and then they're going to print your ballot that is specific to you. Um, you know, you and I probably don't live in the same district, so we
Yeah.
have, we're voting for different people, different races, things like that.
Yeah, and so that way they're prepared and they know for their area where they're living,
Mhm,
they have their bat and I think that goes back to what you mentioned of getting that ballot on demand. So
mhm,
when you're there, they're printing out that ballot
mhm,
specifically for you and where you live,
mhm.
so that way it's ready to go, and
Yeah.
I think it can be intimidating, thinking back to the very first time I voted, it can be intimidating, you're getting to that line, it's your first time. I know for me personally, it was like, I don't wanna mess up. I don't wanna actually fill in the same bubble twice or
Mhm.
do something
Yeah.
that may
And
mess
you know
that
what?
up.
Yeah, and so if anyone ever makes a mistake on your ballot and you're like, "Oh, I want another ballot," like, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
That's okay. It is okay. What's gonna happen is you're gonna go up to one of the check-in stations and ask, "Can I made a mistake. Can I get another ballot?" And the presiding judge is gonna come over. They're gonna say, "Absolutely." They're going to spoil your ballot, which means they're literally probably gonna write on it, "spoiled,"
Yeah.
and they're going to print you another ballot.
Okay.
So
So
even if you make a mistake, just go ask for a new ballot. Mhm.
say that was more of a me question because I'm not gonna lie, I do get still worried that I'm like, okay, I did this right. I'm one to double check my work to make sure it's like, okay, I did fill this out correctly.
Mhm.
It's okay. And then
Mhm.
so knowing that if by any chance somebody makes a
Yeah.
mistake, that they will walk you through it.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, any place that I've ever gone voting here in town since I've lived in Las Cruces, some of the most friendliest people
Mhm.
that you're gonna find. Just I mean, it's great. So everybody that is on site to help you to walk you through the process definitely makes everything very, very easy, and you feel less
Yeah.
stress going into the voting polls, and just doing your vote.
Absolutely. We're here to help. Our election officials are super friendly. Some of our election officials have been working elections for like 15 years.
Ah,
And so they have so much knowledge. They're super friendly. We also have these fun cowbells for first time voters. So if you want to ring the cowbell, go ahead and do that. We have the selfie stations. So if you want to take a
We
selfie, go
did
ahead and do
that.
that.
We did that.
We have the stickers.
Yes. Oh, the
Mhm,
stickers. Everybody goes
mhm.
for the stickers.
Yep.
Everybody's like, "Hey, did I get my sticker?"
Yep.
And the best thing I like that, now having a son, taking him with me. That's
Yes.
always the best thing. And then they'll give him the sticker as well to be, hey, he was there with us. And then
Yeah.
so
So
it's
you
just
don't have to tell me if you voted yet or not, but
yeah.
if you do, for election day, we're going to have future voter stickers that are
Okay.
very fun.
Nice, nice.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
there's a lot to look forward to with the voting process, and I just it's great. So if you get a chance to vote early, or if you vote on election day, I know most people will be excited to vote on election day
Mhm.
because that day is a big day, and
It's like a sacred day for a
it
lot of people.
really is. And
Mhm.
one of the things that especially if you're taking time off of work to go do this, I mean, it's just there's a lot to
Mhm.
look forward to, and like you said, you run into the community, you run
Mhm.
into people you haven't seen, maybe neighbors that you haven't seen in a minute. You run into a lot of people
Yeah.
while you're
Yeah.
in lines voting. I want to go ahead and get to a segment, a part of the program. By the way, thank you so much
Mhm.
for tuning in, everybody. Of course, we are joined by Chief Deputy Clerk Caroline Zamora as we are getting you ready for the election. And this next segment is things to know about election day or when you go to the polls. I kind of wanted to use this opportunity to kind of go over some things that, you know, I mentioned, me, for example, taking my son with me. Those things that people need to know, those things to know before they head out to the polls, before they go to vote. I guess this opportunity to let people know some of the things to be aware of when they're going to vote. So starting off with that, I mentioned, and this is obviously when it's taking your kids, being able to take your little ones with you when you go to the polls. You
Absolutely. We
can.
love seeing young people, kiddos out there with their families voting. We have seen entire families come and vote, like grandma, grandpa,
Yeah.
mom and dad, older kids, older siblings, they make it a family event, and I love it.
That's the best moment, especially when
Yes,
you see those families that are all coming out to vote, and, yeah, it becomes a nice little mini reunion on election day or voting day.
100%. I 100% love it. And so I think the thing that I wanna remind folks about, um, is that, 1, we're here to help, so if you have any questions at any point, give us a call or talk to an election official. Um, where you can find the sites, of course, dacelection.com, we talked about that a little bit. Um, but also I wanna remind folks, and this is where we see, maybe misinformation or malinformation, we can go ahead and talk about that
Well, let's
also.
before we get to that, I
Mhm.
wanna mention that, when people go to vote, I wanted to talk about especially, dress code or
Yes.
any type of swag, and,
Yeah.
one of the things that I wanted to mention is when you go to vote, just kind of making sure that you're prepared when you go to vote,
Mhm.
so that way we can make the process,
Yeah, absolutely.
easier.
So, I know that everyone is passionate about who they're voting for, and
Mhm.
they wanna wear their shirts and their hats and their pins. I love that, but you can't do that.
Yes.
It is electioneering, and you cannot be wearing any anything that has either the name of the candidate or their slogan. And so you cannot wear any of that within 100 feet of a
Yes.
voting location, and all of our voting locations have that 100-foot marked.
And also campaigning as well. I know
Yes.
at some locations you do have those that are campaigning
Mhm.
outside, and they're if you've ever been to a campaign to a voting location, there is a you guys set actually a
The
boundary
100
where you
foot.
tell
Mhm.
people where people cannot campaign past this line. And I'm assuming this the same would
Mhm.
apply, especially if you are wearing any type of merchandise from your candidate,
Yeah.
whether it's a local or, to
A
the
federal,
president vice.
mhm,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. So no electioneer or campaigning within that 100-foot boundary. We did post information on our Facebook and on our website, and it is from the Secretary of State and the Department of Justice. They put out a really great guide. It's called the Voter Information Resource Guide. And in that guide, it really talks about what is prohibited activity and prohibited individuals at polling locations or within the area of a Dropbox secured container. And so electioneering is prohibited activity and includes the display or distribution of signs or campaign literature, campaign buttons, t-shirts, hats, pins, and other such items. And so again, you cannot be wearing your campaign gear. Um, no shoes, no belts, no hats, no buttons, no things like that within that 100-foot boundary. So just be prepared. If you do and you get there, the presiding judge, who is the boss of that location, will ask you to either go back to your car, leave it in your car, or remove it, go to the restroom, turn your shirt inside out, something like that,
Yeah.
so that you do have the opportunity to vote. But we cannot let you into the site with that gear on.
And I believe
No.
there's signage as well
Oh,
as
yeah.
they're approaching. So that's
Mhm,
one of those things where it's like, we're telling you and, they may, "Oh, I didn't know that." No, there's signage clearly
mhm,
posted that says there's no
mhm.
campaigning as you enter
Yeah.
to go and vote.
Yeah, and a lot of times folks will say, "Well, it's just my shirt, I'm non-campaigning." That is considered campaigning,
Yes.
and that is what our state law does say. Mhm,
With technology and obviously cell phones, smartphones, we all look to capture the moment. We
mhm,
definitely wanna capture the moment. What is the rule, especially when you go in to vote? You can't have your phone out. I guess explain that a
mm,
little bit because obviously after you vote and you walk off, I mean, we wanna capture the moments. This has now become we're definitely have, in technology where we wanna capture that moment, let people know that we
mhm,
voted.
mhm.
What is the rule regarding cell phones or any type of recording devices when you approach a polling station?
So, first, it will be the presiding judge who makes the call. The
Okay,
presiding judge, like I said earlier, they are the boss of that site. Um, Presiding judge will ask you to put recording devices away
okay,
because secrecy of the ballot is a cornerstone of democracy, and everyone has the right to privacy when voting.
yes.
And so that's why we set up the selfie stations. And so if you're trying to record or take pictures, even if it's just your ballot, the presiding judge will likely ask you to not do that and to put your phone away.
Okay.
Mhm.
We've seen it in, national headlines. I think it was a couple of years ago, a
More like
celebrity,
nefarious activity.
yeah, where they
Mhm.
were just, and they were taking a picture of them holding their ballot. They were excited, but it got themselves in a little bit of a trouble because
Mhm.
you were taking a picture. And for what you said, their voter privacy, you don't
Mhm.
know the person behind you may not
Mhm.
want to be in that photo,
Mhm.
and so just respecting those privacies of those that are going to vote.
Yes, absolutely. There are people around you. There's the potential that you take a picture that somehow someone else's ballot is in your picture. Um, so there's again, secrecy of the ballot, and privacy. We want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable. It can also be an intimidating act.
Mhm.
Voter intimidation is a felony.
Yeah.
And so that is why the presiding judge will likely ask you to put your phone away and no recording
And
devices.
then that's great because, even for our younger voters or even myself that will take that picture when I get my sticker, because we all do that, but knowing that there is, a section where you can take a picture and you can do that. But just a reminder, just to please respect those privacies of
Yes.
those that are gonna be voting and
Mhm.
not to engage in those activities because to you, you may be thinking that it may not be harmful, but you could be doing something without realizing that you were like, "Oh, no, I was
Yeah.
just trying to take a picture." Yeah, you gotta be careful with
Yeah,
those things.
absolutely. And there are also, more nefarious actors who maybe are trying to record all the election officials
Yeah.
or trying to record other people they're voting. Again, voter intimidation or intimidation of an election official is a felony.
What are
Mhm.
some other things that we need to know, especially when we're going to vote on that day? Is there anything else that we need to let, those that are gonna be, walking through those doors and casting their vote?
You know what I think? If at any point you do feel intimidated by someone or you see activity that you're not okay with, maybe you see gear, campaign gear, or something like that, you can always make the presiding judge or any of the election officials aware.
Okay.
We always appreciate that. If you ever have any questions about, again, if you want to, if maybe you made a mistake on your ballot,
Yeah.
you'd like to turn in that ballot and get a new one, you can go ahead and do that. Um, Going again, the locations, if you want to check out our website, dacelections.com/locations, you can see all the locations. Also, trying to think of what is something really important for that day. Um, yeah, we're here to help. We're here to answer questions. You can get your sample ballot. We have the super samples at every location, but the super sample has everything, and it may have a race that you're not going to be voting in. Again, it's a super sample. It is the big. It is every race, but you can see a sample ballot specific to you. You can go on to nmvote.org, and you can look up my registration, and then you'll enter your information, your name and your birthday, your county, things like that, and your voter profile will come up, and then you can look at your sample ballot. You can print your sample ballot, and all that.
Excellent, excellent. We're gonna go ahead and go to another voter question, and this one is coming from Andrew, talking about the ballot and the availability of the ballot.
My name is Andrew, and my question is, will the ballot be available in other languages when we go to vote?
So, wanting to know the accessibility for other languages when they go to the ballot.
Yeah, absolutely. Our ballots will be in English and Spanish. And of course, the official languages of New Mexico are English and Spanish. So they will be in those languages. And so if also if you have any accessibility, maybe you're um, visually impaired, we do have the machines that will are accessible for accessibility. And so we do. So if you need help with a ballot for any reason, feel free to ask.
Okay.
We're here to help.
Perfect, perfect. And of course, thank you, Andrew, for that question. And again, it's quickly approaching the general election, election day, November 5th. And remind people again at the time, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Mhm.
You can, if you want to vote before you go to work, you can stop by any one of your voting locations and go and vote. One of the things I wanted to talk to you as well about is we seem to be getting a lot of text messages, a lot of text messages. But one of the things that even looking at your website
Mhm.
was you guys addressed uh, for folks to be careful of those spam text messages.
Yes.
Now, you may be getting those messages from a candidate that you're supporting, but I mean, we're in the age where now we're getting the spam calls and the
Yes.
spam text messages.
So there on the 21st, there was a text message that went out, and it did seem it seems nefarious, and it's spam, because it was made to look as though it came from the Secretary of State's website. But if you look more closely at it, like voter was spelled Yoder.
Oh,
The word information was misspelled, and so it was a spam. So I hope that, if you get these, do not click on them and do not give any of them, do not put your information into them. We don't know who's sending them, unfortunately. It has nothing to do with our office. And we're really sorry that this happens and that people will take advantage of our American democracy to take advantage of people.
and it's very unfortunate because with these type of text messages, you do often see this happen, especially when there comes a big event or if there's something
Mm,
that's happening. That oftentimes you're going to see this. Previously on our shows, we've talked about the different outlets of intimidation that
mm,
people will use through these phone calls, not necessarily about the election, but now knowing that as we're getting closer to the election, that we are seeing some of these spam text messages or phone calls. I mean, I've often mentioned times that, you may get a phone call that sometimes can become intimidating.
yes.
You get an intimidating phone call and you're like, "Wait a minute, something is not adding up."
Mhm,
And I often refer to, us to make sure that we're looking after our parents that
mhm,
may not necessarily know that our grandparents who may be receiving a text message saying, "I have to fill out what? I have to do this? What do you mean I can't vote?" Or
mhm.
whatever the case may be. So I think it's a matter of fact is looking after our community. And I did see that you guys had posted on your website about
We
that and informing
did.
the community.
Yeah, and you know what? That the text message specifically said, someone at your location, your address didn't vote. And for someone who's already taken part in early voting, they're like, "Wait, I already voted. Did my vote not count?" So it makes them question the whole process,
Yeah.
which is really unfortunate. It makes them question democracy and the process, which it can be very intimidating. And what we told folks on our socials is they can go to nmvote.org, put in their information, and they can see their voter history. And so it'll show that they've already voted, um, or they can call our office if they have any questions. And so I hope that those types of text messages, I would love for them just to stop.
Yeah.
Um, I hope that those text messages do not deter people from going out to vote.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
yeah.
just, and once again, any questions that you may have, if something doesn't seem right, contacting, your office and saying, "Hey, is this something?" Because I mean, these forms of, spam messages come in any form. I mean, and you're
Mhm,
just sometimes it's best just to check
mhm.
and just to double check. And that website again, you said NM Votes for those that wanted to check on their
Yep.
status.
Yes, nmvote.org, and that is the Secretary of State's website. Also, if you're getting like all those text messages from candidates and you want them to stop. I believe there is an FCC law. No, I'm not an expert in this, but I believe this is how this works. There has to be an actual person sending those text messages. And so if you respond and say, please stop, do not send anymore,
Mhm.
there should be an actual person that gets that and they should take you off of their list.
And if you're looking at those messages and we've seen them, I think you have to also make sure there's some messages that will actually say to unsubscribe to this
Mhm.
text, please message back no
Yeah,
or
like to opt
unsubscribe.
out.
Yeah,
Yep.
to opt out.
Mhm.
So there are those, and you've seen those in your email as well. So just a reminder to those. And once again, your guys' website, a great reference. I have just before you joined us today, I just wanted to kind of do some quick research and to see, and just the fact that you guys have been keeping everything up to date for us. It is a really great tool for those that especially are wanting to get prepared for it. You mentioned the voting locations. I saw this story about the spam text messages. There's a lot of information, and I'm sure more information that is going to be coming out as we approach election day.
Mhm. Yes, so much more information comes out. We have a great team at our office, and we work so hard to put as much information out to the public as possible. We also work with like our partners, like you all here, who let me come onto the show and talk about this. Um, Jason at the Sun News, Justin at the Bulletin, who have written great articles, really informative articles to make sure that we're getting information out there as much as possible. I talked to Telemundo recently. There's some other radio stations that I've talked to. And so, really, our office does a great job at putting information out. My recommendation to folks is to be sure to follow our Facebook and our Instagram, our Twitter, especially for all the election information, and then anything going on election day. That's really how we get the information out.
Another question I want to ask, and if someone who has registered in the past and recently moved,
Mhm.
should they check on their status of their registration? What would you recommend to that individual to do in that case? That say you may have lived in one district and now you've moved to a different district.
Yeah,
What should
so
they do?
so you can go ahead, and if you have not updated, so you recently moved and you haven't updated your registration, you're gonna have to utilize same day registration. And so again, using same day registration, you're gonna need to bring in a government issued ID plus a proof of residence, with your new address on it. The proof of residence has to be like a utility bill, a rental agreement, a bank statement, something with your new address that is your proof of residence.
Okay.
Or you can bring in your New Mexico Real ID that has your new address on it.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. So that way, people that are recently moving, or those that have moved from, like I said, it happens so often that you move from one district to
Mhm.
another, and you got to make sure that you have that taken care of.
Yeah,
And
New Mexico is so voter friendly. Really, shout out to our New Mexico. Really, we have great election law. We were ranked number one by MIT. MIT, their election lab. Of course, MIT is a very prestigious university, and they don't have a political stake. They love science and metrics and data, and they ranked New Mexico number one. And we are very voter friendly. We have things like the gold standard is we have paper ballots. Um, Paper ballots are really, again, a cornerstone of safe and secure elections. We have those paper ballots, and we can recount any race, or we can recount an entire election if needed. So paper ballots are very important. All of our tabulators, all this are completely air gapped, like I said earlier. They never touch the internet. We have other things like 28 days of early voting. There are two states in this country, Mississippi and Alabama, that do not have early voting.
that is amazing when you hear that
Isn't
there's
it?
not early voting. And meanwhile, for us, we're getting ready. I mean, now
Mhm.
Saturdays people
Yep.
can go and vote because I mean it's just it's fascinating that you
Mhm.
have two states that still don't do early voting.
Absolutely, and I all I can think is, man, I hope their boss is gonna let them out that day. I hope they don't gotta go pick up the kids.
Yeah.
I hope that the polls are gonna stay open when they say that they're gonna stay open, I think, and so New Mexico really does an amazing job at elections. And so that is a testament to the amazing election officials. Again, our office, we only have 33 employees in our office. There are 42 election day sites. We do not run elections without the community, or these are community run elections. Um, and so really just that is a testament to the amazing election officials, Our Bureau of Elections, our Secretary of State office, all the county clerk office is putting in the good work, plus our election officials that work elections.
And it's just amazing. And, thank you so much for taking time to join us today. I know with all that you have going on and your team have going on, freeing up some time for us to talk and getting the word out to the community. One of the things I think often people need to know is just to hear those answers to those questions. I mean, there are occasions where we may have a question, but we may not necessarily we may be too shy to ask
Mhm.
those questions. And I think this is a perfect dialogue to be able to inform the community. That way, if they're planning, I mean, we may have people that say, you know what, I'm going to early vote now rather than wait for election day. And I think it's just a great thing that you guys are doing. And it's just my respects to you and your team for all that
Yeah.
you guys are doing as we get prepared for this major
Yeah, thank
election.
you. We really do. We're very voter friendly. We want folks to get out there and vote. We of course have the 9 early voting sites. We also have 9 secured container drop boxes, and we have the most out of any county in the state. Bernalillo County, which is they have 1 million people. They only have 2 boxes.
Oh my
Isn't
gosh.
that crazy?
Yeah, that's crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And us with 9.
We have 9 because we want we have a lot of rural communities. We want folks in Hatch and Vado and Chaparral, we want them to have access to drop off their absentee ballot if they need to. And so we have 9 secure container drop. I want to talk about these real quick.
I was gonna say, I was like, I
Yeah.
wanted us to talk a little bit about the rural communities,
Yeah.
especially and with the drop-off
Uh-huh.
boxes. We'll start off with the drop-off boxes
Mhm.
too, because to hear that Bernalillo has 2
Yep.
and we have 9.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, this is something that we've looked into where we said, hey, this is something that we need to make sure that we have
Mhm.
and that it's convenient and it's accessible to residents.
Absolutely. We are Dona County is a big county. Like geographically, it's a big county. And so we want to make sure that residents in our rural areas have access to drop off their ballot, their absentee ballot, if they'd like to. Now these I try not to call them drop boxes
Mhm.
because they are secured
Yeah.
containers. These are more secure than your mailbox. Okay. And people be dropping off their taxes in those, right?
Yeah.
So these are 24-hour security. I mean, I have all the security video whenever it's opened. We're able to access that. They're 24-hour monitored. When it's raining, I know it's raining in a certain area because I'm getting emails on what's going on, right? Like these are very secure containers. And like I said, these are more secure than the post office. And the post office does a great job. I don't want to deter people from
Yeah.
dropping it off in their regular mail because election mail is also different. So election mail has a specific logo that the U.S. Post Service looks for. It cannot be forwarded. So you can't, let's say you're getting your mail in another state, it cannot be forwarded. Um, the carriers know to be looking for election mail again because it has specific logos on it, things like that. And so the drop boxes, the entire absentee process, mailing in, dropping them off, we want accessibility for voters. We have a lot of areas, whether it's Berino, Chamberino, Vado, Sunland Park, the folks in Chaparral, up in trying to think up in
I
Hatch.
was gonna say Hatch.
Yeah, Garfield.
Yeah. There's
We have folks, we want them to be able to access a Dropbox if they need to.
And I wanted to mention about the rural communities. Someone coming from a rural community and knowing, I guess, the process, especially from someone that may be voting in a small community, and knowing that everything is applying the same that you would see here in Las Cruces at the government center. Those same standards are being held at our smaller communities.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. We have the same, the tabulators, the BOD systems, the ballot on demand system where you check in. Every location has a same day registration agent, a person there doing same day registration. Every location, and that's because we want this to be accessible. We want, if you showed up in Hatch and you're trying same day registration, and we tell you, oh, there's only one site that you can do that at. Well, now you got to drive all the way to Las Cruces, and that is not good for the voter.
Yeah.
So that's why we make that available at every site.
And especially with our population, you do have a population of folks that may live in one community, but they work in a
Mhm.
different community. And knowing that, okay, I have to drive all the way back to Las Cruces, or I have to drive, and we're using Hatch, for example, I have to drive all the way back to Hatch Am I going to make it back in time to vote? But knowing that those availabilities, and I think that's one of the key things that to remind people is that you can vote in the county at any one of the 40 locations that they're
Mhm.
talking about. So, like we've mentioned previously in this conversation, if something is closer to you, you can go in there and knowing that even if it is I need to register that date and vote, they can do that process wherever they go.
Absolutely, 100%. And you know what? I used to love voting at Oregon, the little community up the hill,
Yes.
because there's never a line. And my mom lives up on the East Mesa, and so I literally, like, walk in, took 2 minutes, and so that's why so some of these smaller sites in the outlying areas, you can beat the line and just yeah, but you can stop any
I
we really try to make it as friendly for
I
voters as
I gotta
possible.
let you know, I love to see the social media threads, especially on election day, because you start to see friends that post, "Hey, there wasn't a line here at
Yep.
this school. There wasn't a line here at this. Oh, I just finished voting over here, and you can get in really quick." And it's so
Mhm.
cool because you've seen the community come through and almost like a, "Hey, if you need to vote, go over here," or,
Yep.
"Hey, come over here," or, "Hey, we're hanging out here, come vote here." So the sense of community coming together for that day, I think
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
great.
I love elections.
It's
Yeah.
awesome, and, like, I told you, Carolina, I was like, I've seen from, all different aspects of the election, and once again, I can't stress this enough, my props to you and your team because this is a very important time for any election, and the fact that your team, everybody that comes together to make sure that we get the results that when it's time to receive the official results, when it's helping somebody, whether it's somebody that may be a first-time voter or maybe it might be somebody that doesn't speak English, that may speak Spanish, and knowing that there's those guides to help them in Spanish. I mean, I think that's just great that you have all these resources to help those voters.
Yeah, absolutely. We want our goal is to make sure everyone has the opportunity and is able to um, have their right to vote and express their right to vote, and that's really our office's goal. And so we're here to answer questions at polling sites at the voting locations. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. We want to encourage you to ask questions and to participate and to vote and um, to not feel like scared
Yeah.
because sometimes I feel like, especially with first time voters, like they don't want to do it because they've never done it and they're feeling just like that anticipation, like
Eh,
they're scared, you
you
know?
would you would hate for them to walk away, especially
Yeah.
when it's such a big moment, especially when you're a
Yes.
first time voter, and you would hate for them to feel discouraged, and knowing
Absolutely.
that,
Yeah.
and just seeing what your team has done,
Mhm.
I think it's gonna be great, and it's a
Thank
lot to
you.
look forward to.
Thank
Oh,
you. And also props to my team. I mean, we've heard from our state and federal partners. We've seen the early voting numbers. This is likely going to be the largest election we've ever seen. So real shout out to the amazing Bureau of Elections team, the recording and filing team who holds down the fort for us,
yes.
and all the election officials who are out there at each site because we're running the largest election we've ever seen.
It's amazing and a lot to look forward to over the next couple of weeks. One final question I wanted to mention. I meant to mention this earlier, but I wanted to talk about military and overseas voting
Yes.
for our military that may be deployed and that are residents here but are currently serving. Talk a little bit about the military and overseas voting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we call these folks our UOCAVA, and that just means, our uniformed overseas civilians, who are either serving in the military or maybe they're working for Department of Defense or something like that, or maybe they're just civilians living overseas who are still American citizens and have the right to vote. Um, they probably know this process really well, but they can go ahead and apply for that. And they go to fvap.gov to apply for that. And I just want to remind them that um, they have to have their ballot back to us by November 5th at 7 p.m.
Okay.
And that's any absentee ballot, any mail ballot, absentee or UOCAVA ballot has to be back to us in our office or in at one of the locations by 7 p.m.
Okay. So that way, that's a good reminder
Mhm.
for our overseas and active military as well.
Yes, and we've seen so many this year. I mean, we are getting, and I love getting messages from them. They actually reach out to us on our Facebook a lot,
Wow.
and it's fun hearing from folks. This week we heard from a woman in Germany. Her and her husband are stationed there, and they wanted to be sure to vote, and so we got to hear from them. We hear from them, and so it's fun getting to talk to them, and they're excited, and they want to vote, and they're serving overseas.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Mhm.
there, of course, thank you so much once again for taking the time. I can't believe we've been talking for an hour. It doesn't even
Have
feel
we?
like it.
It doesn't feel like we've
Doesn't
been
feel like
talking
we've been
very
talking for an
long.
hour, but there's just so
Mhm.
much information. And of course, if there's any questions that people may have, and maybe any of the questions that we talked about today may have sparked questions that they may have for themselves. Maybe they want to, contact you guys and ask for, maybe they have a question, first time voters or whatever the situation may be. How can they get in contact with your office?
Yeah, so you can call us at 575-647-7428. You can email us at elections@donianacounty.org, or you can go onto our website, dacelections.com. You can reach out to us on our social media accounts. Um, and, right now, again, early voting is happening right now. It's from October 19th through November 2nd, Tuesday through Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Those locations include Anthony Public Library, DACC Chaparral, Hatch Valley Public Schools Student Service Training Center, Corbett Center on NMSU campus, DACC East Mesa, Las Cruces City Hall, Mesilla Town Hall, and DACC Sunland Park. Also, at the Government Center, early voting is happening at the Government Center, but these are a little bit different day and time. So, early voting at the Government Center is happening through November 1st, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then on November 2nd, Saturday, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And so the DACC, the Government Center has a little bit different times, but you can see all of this information in more detail on our website, dacelections.com.
Excellent. Once again, thank you so much for joining us and being on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Joey. This is
Appreciate it.
really a great community service. It really is.
I just appreciate you taking time. I know I was like, let's see if she'll have some time for us today because with the schedule that you guys have had, and as we get prepared for this election, once again, good luck.
Thank
I
you.
know because a lot will be happening on that
Mhm.
day. But again, we thank you so much for all
Yeah.
that you do, you and your team, as we get ready for the 2024 election. We just appreciate you and
Thank
taking the
you.
time and joining us and talking to our listeners today.
Thank you. We appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Again, thank you everybody for joining us today. Remember, you can catch this on our social medias on Mesilla Valley News, as well as on our websites, hot103.fm for today's hottest music, Hot 103, KGRT.com, your country 1039 KGRT, theclassicrockstation.com. That is Classic Rock 98.7. Our latest edition, Cool 1045, The Rhythm of Cruces at 1045coolfm.com. Again, you can connect with us. And we thank again our guests for joining us today, Chief Deputy Clerk Caroline Zamora. We thank them again so much for joining us. Again, this has been another edition of Mesilla Valley Better Together. Thank you so much for tuning in.